Do good, Maverick. Go here. Happiness can be a destructive goal. Welcome to podcast episode number 73. Happiness can be a destructive goal. When it comes to happiness, I, I agree that it is an extremely important thing. But when it becomes the most important thing, the top priority above everything else, then it's the wrong thing. It's not the most important thing in life. It is extremely important, yes, but it's not the absolute very most important thing in life. Because if that becomes the most important thing, then the amount of crazy things people are willing to do in order to achieve happiness that way, it's scary to think about. Because if happiness is the most important thing above everything else, even above doing the right thing, above meaningful things, purposeful things, healthy things, it can be twisted like crazy. If happiness, you hear people say things like, "Yeah, but as long as you're happy, that's all that matters," right? Absolutely not, because if happiness is all that matters, you can literally snort coke. If happiness is your one big overarching life goal, snort coke. Even that can, in some people's mind, seem like an okay thing to do. It's absolutely not. Destructive things like that. That's a wild example, but you hear it's actually very common. Not that example, but it's actually very common that people are using happiness as an excuse to do destructive things. Like, for example, a lot of people that get a divorce. Yeah, I'm not happy, so I have to break up the entire family and a long marriage just because I am not feeling happy in this exact moment. While if someone is not happy in a marriage, maybe they should fix whatever it is that is not making them happy or what is making them unhappy. Things can be fixed. Yeah, I'm not really sure how I should go about explaining this, but yeah, happiness. How can you be happy? I think one of the main things when it comes to happiness, or the kind of counterintuitive thing when it comes to happiness, is that it usually is achieved when you're not chasing it. It's more like the result of doing some kind of positive activity. And then I think it is especially often tied to making progress towards some goal and doing other healthy, good things. Of course, there's a lot more to it than just progress. Tony Robbins says that progress equals happiness, and I think there's a lot of truth to it. So that progress is a big thing affecting happiness. I definitely think so. But of course, there are other things involved. We have multiple different needs. I mean, we have several needs, psychological, basic human needs. There's also so different personality types, stuff like that. Tony Robbins also talks about the science of achievement and the art of fulfillment. So he doesn't call it the science of fulfillment. Fulfillment and happiness is not. I guess it's not exactly the exact same thing, but yeah. Meaning is more meaning is a lot more important than happiness. Happiness is kind of very fleeting and emotion based oftentimes. Whereas meaning, if you have a really strong sense of meaning and purpose, it's a lot more stable and healthy and productive. You know, I forgot who had the quote, something like, if you give a man a strong enough meaning, or was it a strong enough purpose, he will crawl over broken glass with a smile on his face. And there's a lot of truth to it. Yeah, I I just hear it so much these days. Happiness. Yeah, as long as it makes you happy, it's totally okay. All that matters is that you're happy. Happiness is the most important thing. No, it's not. Jordan Peterson talks a lot about this as well, and I heard him talk about it and articulate it pretty brilliantly years after I thought about it. But yeah, happiness. Wasn't it the Duck Dynasty guy? Roberts, what's his name again? I think he wrote a book titled Happy, 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 because and he talked about it because it was kind of a thing these days that a lot of people talk about happiness like it's the only thing. And when it comes to happiness, if you kind of chase it down, it's kind of like grasping after, I don't know, maybe you can compare it to grasping jello in your hands. If you grasp it and squeeze it really tight, just kind of squeeze it out in between your fingers, and you're not able to hold on to it. Or the more you chase it, the more it kind of escapes you. I think that can in many cases be the case with happiness. Whereas if you go after meaningful, purposeful things, and you have a goal that you are making progress towards, and also the biggie, God, if you have Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, people are created with a need to worship God. And if we don't worship God, you see people worshiping all sorts of other things. And there is a kind of like a God-shaped vacuum inside every person. So if you're not connected to God, the need is still there, but people find all sorts of ways to try to fulfill that need. The Bible talks about, and the joy in the Lord is your strength. The joy in the Lord is your strength. Why? Who knows? Maybe it's because if we seek our joy and happiness in the Lord, maybe that's a healthy way to, maybe that's the best way to achieve it, and also a healthy way to also avoid a lot of other unhealthy and what should we call it? What's the word I'm looking for? Unhealthy and hedonistic, sensual pleasures that can be avoided if we find our joy in the Lord instead. And also if we focus on meaningful and purposeful things. instead. Because if you just chase happiness with no limits to it, I'm not saying everyone is doing that, but some people are actually doing it. If they're chasing happiness with no limits to it, and it's like that's the one most important overarching thing, then they can justify doing all sorts of crazy things. So yeah, it can be destructive, but at the same time, being happy is extremely important. I am happy, so it's easy for me to maybe say things like it's not that important, just like multi-millionaires saying money is not important. But yeah, it is important. I'm not exactly sure if I got my point across with this rambling, but it definitely is a massive lesson these days that happiness can be a destructive goal if it is prioritized above everything else, you know. Anyway, and by the way, if you have not yet checked out communitycashcows.com, I highly advise you to do so. It's basically a bunch of interviews where I interviewed several success stories of people that have built a paid community and are making at least $10,000 in profit per month. It's not just interviews; it's also a community where you can connect with a bunch of other people that are also building their own paid communities. So if you are dreaming about escaping the matrix of the 9 to 5 rat race, if you want things like financial freedom, time, income, and location independence, and you want to be able to choose what you do, when you do it, where you do it, and with whom you do it, you know, the 4 Ws, the freedom multiplier, as Timothy Ferris calls it. If you want the freedom to do that, maybe you should have a cash cow that could pay for your lifestyle. And maybe that cash cow should be a community cash cow. When it comes to making money online, there's a lot of opportunities out there. Paid communities is absolutely not the only opportunity, of course. But the really unique thing about paid communities is that for those of you that are interested in semi-passive income, where you can work like a few hours per week, let's say approximately like 2 to 15 hours, maybe some more, but not 40 to 100 hours, you know. Then maybe a paid community could be a good fit. My goal is not to have semi-passive income as the only thing, but it is fascinating. One guy I interviewed a few weeks ago, these days he was working less than 4 hours per week and profiting about 18,000 euros per month. So the dream of freedom is possible. Anyway, if you want to check it out, just go to communitycashcows.com. All right. God bless.